Hello everybody. Okay, so in my last video I said that I'd continue doing my journals. Hopefully this one won't be as long as the last one because that went on for quite a long time, so I'm just going to get straight into it. One of the things that I wanted to show you was this bit here. I started writing it in terms of patterns, but it's not really a pattern as such. It's just something that I do sometimes that if I'm bored or I need to calm down or whatever, is that I'll go through films and then I'll take an actor that was in that film in another film and then go from an actor that was in that film as well. That made more sense in my head, but example, here I've done start with Prince of Persia. Gemma Arterton was in Prince of Persia with Jake Gyllenhaal. Jake Gyllenhaal was in Zodiac with Robert Downey Jr., who plays Sherlock Holmes in the movies. In Sherlock Holmes 2, you meet Sherlock's brother Mycroft, who was played by Stephen Fry. Stephen Fry was in V for Vendetta with Natalie Portman, who was also in Phantom Menace, which obviously has Ewan McGregor in, who was in Moulin Rouge with Nicole Kidman. Nicole Kidman was also in The Hours, which also had Meryl Streep. Meryl Streep was in Devil Wears Prada with Anne Hathaway, and so on and so forth. And that's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, just over 8 pages I was doing that for. But, whatever floats your boat, as it were. Most of that I was going on about Naruto. All that's whiny stuff. More whiny stuff. All that is whiny stuff. Oh, that was because I had to do mood and whatnot throughout the day for my therapy. Not that it worked. Lyrics. Trying to write a poem bit there. Bitching about one of my sisters. I quite like this. I'd marked this specifically to talk about. Obviously, as you probably figured out by now, I love writing, and you get all these quotes from writers about how they go about writing their stuff, and I randomly wrote this. Said all the famous authors have quotes. This is mine. I don't know how other writers write, but I write in bits and pieces, so for me, being a writer is kind of like being Dr. Frankenstein. I dig inside myself for the parts to make up the body, and then I sew them together, and it gets to the point where I can say, it's alive! The process is quite raw and disjointed and unrefined, so even when my creation lives, I have to make amendments and such. There is fear like Frankenstein might have felt. What will people think of my creation? Have I succeeded, etc.? But you have to keep working and working to refine your monster into something beautiful. You might never accomplish the perfect being, but with every monster you create, you'll learn better, more efficient techniques. I was pretty proud of that. That's kind of why it's like, I think I mentioned in my last video about keeping journals, because you end up occasionally having, you know, some pretty good ideas. I've just totally lost my train of thought, but some doodles. Dropping out of college again. Why have I marked that? Oh, I marked that specifically for the Wake Up Alice bit. One of my favourite things to say, and I just got obsessed with drawing. I don't know why. It's just a thing I started. Drawn a couple of times. This my obsession with Japan. These parts here was, like I said in my last video about it, there being clear phases in my journals, whether I'm in a depressed episode or a manic episode. So this was during one of my manic episodes. Going back to college. And I think this was going back into a just going on about what a bitch obsession is, because it really is. Like, it actually, I'm gonna go on a little rant here because it really makes me mad when people say like they're not it's not a fan thing, they're obsessed or whatever, and it's like, you know, do you even know what obsession is? Because like, actually having a problem with obsession is it's not funny, it's not cute, it's not, you know, oh, you're so obsessed. I've had people say that to me a lot. Like, when I get obsessed with something, I will talk about it non-stop. That's one of the autistic things that I have, and it does people's heads in. But like, the amount of times my family has been like, God, you're so obsessed, and it's like, I can't help it. Like, right now I'm obsessed with Teen Wolf, and I really did like try when I started watching it, and I could feel it start, like the obsession starting, and I was like, you're not going to get obsessed, you're just going to watch it, you're going to enjoy it, you're not going to get obsessed. And obviously that failed. Considering it's like get onto my actual blog here. Yeah, see, it's kind of taken over my blog. But I did try. I did try and not get obsessed with as obsessed as I usually do, but I have, and it's not fun. On the other hand, like, you know, when I first started thinking about things in terms of obsession, like, the first thing that popped into my head was like I don't know, this probably makes me sound like a really twisted person, but the first thing that popped into my head was like the obsessive serial killer type person that, like, oh, if I can't have them, no one will, and like kills the girl he loves or something. Like, that's the first thing that came to my head, and like, some of my obsessions end up being about certain people, like Corey Taylor or Dylan O'Brien, for example. And it's like, it doesn't ever get like that. Like, it's never, oh yeah, I'm gonna stalk Dylan O'Brien on Twitter and like send him loads of messages and stuff like that. That's not what it's about. Like, when I was like majorly obsessed with Corey Taylor, when I was in college, well, I was for like a few years, so it wasn't just when I was at college, but anyway, when I was obsessed with him, like, and everyone at college is like, well, you know how teenagers are, like, God, I say like so much, sorry about that. Where was I? Yeah, everything in college, with that kind of age group, everything reverts back to sex. So when I was obsessed with Corey, it was all, oh yeah, you'd totally sleep with him if you had the chance. It's like, no. Like, that's not what it's about. Like, there's not an automatic, if I get obsessed with someone, then I automatically want to screw them, you know? That has nothing to do with it. Like, not even, you know, that's discounting the fact that I'm actually asexual, and probably, I don't know, the likelihood of me ever having sex is just not very high at all. But yeah, even taking that out of the equation, like, it's nothing to do with that kind of emotion at all. It's more having something to relate to in somebody else. Like, you have, it's about that connection that you feel that you have with someone. Like, I don't know, they're interesting, you know, you get interested, you want to know about them, you want to know their thoughts on things. And I think that's one of the like, when I was younger and I used to cry over fucking everything. Like, I hardly ever cry now, but when I was younger I used to cry over everything. And before I knew about Corey, I was a little obsessed with Joey Jordison. And there was this one period of time when I was like literally crying myself to sleep over him, which sounds pathetic, but you would not believe like how horrible it is, because you get to the point where you're going through things or doing something or talking about something, and you're like, oh, I wonder what so and so would think about this. I wonder what so and so's opinion on this would be. Imagine doing this with so and so, and the fact that, like, you know, this is people like Corey Taylor and Dylan O'Brien and Johnny Depp and all that. They're you know, big time celebrity type people. It's like, and I'm some nobody, so it's the chances of ever sitting down with them and having a decently lengthed conversation and finding out their opinions and stuff personally, and like that never happening, it's really awful. you know, and it's called obsession for a reason, you know. It takes over everything, like, everything becomes about whatever it is that I'm obsessed with. Like, when I was doing the first year of BTEC, photography, there was one brief that I got a distinction for, and the entire brief I based around a supernatural episode. Well, not the episode itself, the conversation in it. There's a episode in season 5 where Dean gets sent to the future, and he has a conversation with Lucifer while Lucifer's wearing Sam as a meat suit, basically, and they have a conversation. And I based the entirety of my brief around that conversation and around Lucifer's monologue about God casting him out of heaven for not loving man more than he loved God. Purely because I was obsessed with supernatural at the time. So yeah, it really does take over everything. But anyway, yeah. Obsession rant over. I don't think there's much more in this one that I particularly want to oh yeah, preparing to move back into the foyer, so this would have been last year. Oh, Kim's birthday party. I smashed a full bottle of Jägermeister by knocking it off the side. God, I don't actually like parties. I'm not good with people at the best of times, and parties are just like, ugh. Too loud, too tense, like, there's like almost always some kind of sorry, I'm being really crappy with the camera at the moment. It's just like I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing with the camera. Yeah, there's almost always drama at parties, which is something else I don't like. So I get really mouthy when I'm pissed off, but I really don't like confrontation or anything like that. So and parties, usually there's some kind of confrontation at some point. So yeah. There you go. Well, that was kind of boring. Okay. Next. This one isn't a journal as such. It's just a general notebook. But I wanted to... me attempting to be a musician. Didn't really work very well, did it? Was all obsessed about being in a band again because I was obsessed with the Gazette. This right here is a good example of how I get when I'm in manic phase, because I start doing just everything that I can possibly think of, and more often than not I'll end up taking on too much, and then it'll just, I'll get overwhelmed and just totally drop out of everything and then get really depressed. So oh yeah, I did some work at volunteering work at a radio station. That was pretty fun. And I got to interview some people. Yeah, and editing the interviews, that was really fun. Figuring out story stuff. Still story stuff. Still story stuff. More story stuff. Oh, and then I got obsessed with the idea that I'd be a police officer so that I could be become a detective. That's also a what happens when I get obsessed with things. Like, I had just read a couple of Karen Rose novels, which are worth reading. Definitely, I would recommend them. But they're crime novels, and I got obsessed with them for a while. And when I get obsessed with something like that, it usually impacts what I want to be. Like, so for example, I was obsessed with the Gazette, so I wanted to be in a band. Years ago, when I was obsessed with Murder Dolls and Marilyn Manson and Slipknot, I wanted to be in a band. I got obsessed with the film Dog Soldiers, so I wanted to be a soldier. As I said, Karen Rose novels, so I wanted to be a detective. Skullduggery Pleasant, so I wanted to be a detective. When I was obsessed with Jurassic Park, I wanted to be a paleontologist. I got obsessed with the Big Bang Theory, so I wanted to be a physicist. So yeah, it just, as I say, completely takes over. Research stuff, I love doing research. Like, I'm not sure why. Like, when I was on the access course for art and design, one of our, I think it was I can't for the life of me remember what it's called. One of the lessons, we had to research a specific era in art, and I ended up spending most of the time looking at the Russian Revolution because I just end up following little pathways that I don't even like. I just get further and further away from what I'm actually supposed to be doing. It's another one of my bunny men. Story stuff. Oh yeah. Then I started writing stuff in like third person. Writing about my day in third person, like a story. I don't know what it is. I don't know. It's just everything comes back to stories in one way or another. I can never get enough of stories. They're just. But like, as good as stories are, I mean, that's why I want to go into films and be a writer and all that stuff, because I adore stories so much. But they actually it adds to when I get all depressed and blah, it gets like real life isn't like the stories, as people keep loving to remind me. But there was actually a conversation in a film called Franklin Street. What was it? Franklin. It was called Franklin. And one of the main characters is saying about the story he heard. And at that point in the film, he couldn't actually remember what the ending was. But the story said it was something along the lines of a storyteller was so good at telling stories that he could literally just will things into existence just by the power of his storytelling. So he made himself king of the castle, had a perfect wife, and made his life perfect, kind of thing. And then one day he wakes up, kisses his wife on the cheek while she's sleeping, and then leaves. And he's trying to figure out, the character in the film is trying to figure out why the guy would leave when he had made his life so perfect. And near the end of the film, he figures out, no matter how good the storyteller made his life, it would never be as good as his stories. And I find that really, that's so sad, because aside from the fact that it's like completely true, but the idea that nothing will ever practicing manga skills. I've totally lost my train of thought again. Sorry about that, I do that a lot. Right, I'm going to stop in a minute because it's getting kind of long, but before I do, I'm just going to quickly show you, this is one of my really little notebooks, but there was, nope, that's for a new story that I'm going to be working on. Here it is. When I was obsessed with the idea of being a detective, I decided, I've always had a kind of interest in, this is one of my more twisted interests, is serial killers and stuff like that, particularly Jack the Ripper. So I did a complete kind of essay type thing about Jack the Ripper, trying to figure out the identity of Jack the Ripper. So I did a ton of research, and I was using this as my little detective notepad thingy, like they have to take down the witness statements and everything. So I was using this, and I tried to find all of the evidence that that was around that would have been relevant. So you've got all the information about the victims, and then there's things that I had to look up more for, questions about certain things that didn't add up. Discrepancies in the MO, so some of them that they wondered if it was Jack the Ripper wasn't actually a victim of Jack the Ripper, it was a victim of someone else just at the same time. Other things that were picked out from witness statements saying that they saw unknown people that couldn't be found afterwards. Point of inquiry there. Trying to figure out why Jack the Ripper did what he did. And then, yeah, I think that's everything. But yeah, it was actually really fun. But yeah, I'll leave it there for now. So I have no idea what my next video will be about. I finally got my keyboard out, so I was thinking of maybe uploading some videos of some tunes. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see what happens. So yeah, until next time, bye.